And we're back, and we're talking Wind and Truth again. We are in the middle of the book, and this is part 2. So, public announcement. If you haven't watched part 1 of this series, go back and watch it. But let's dive into
part 2, but days 4 through 6.
Yes, if you're reading the book, you know what that means. There's sections in the book. Days 4 through 6 is what we're talking about. Spoilers will be flying. So if you haven't read up to day 6 with the interludes of Wind and Truth, this is your last warning. But I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. I want to kick off where we left off, which was with Dalinar had just gone into the visions. Actually, it was the part before that, but we didn't get any Dalinar. It's because I think he lost an entire day during the visions.
And because the time is a little bit different in that spiritual realm, it's tricky to place them because the whole book is based on a timeline. It's tricky to place them in there. So day 4, I don't think we saw him very much, right?
Day 3.
Was it day 3?
Because we're starting on day 4. Yep.
Yes.
And
this is day 4.
Jumps into day 4, and you go through Dalinar skipping through the visions and everything, and he finally is able to use the rock that Hoid gave him and able to end at the place where the humans first come to Roshar.
Which is wild. You start to get so much more context. And I think, so the spiritual realm in general for me was very much like, we're just going to flip through the history book really fast and just tell you all the stories and make sure you got it all set.
Okay. Yes. So what do you think about the spiritual realm in general? How it's been crafted?
Confused. I'm confused. It seems odd, and I feel like they gave such a big, like, I guess there's positives and negatives. The positive is I get to learn a lot of information I don't think I would have ever known before.
Yeah.
But the negative for me is that they came in with this big warning, like, time's going to be all crazy. It's dilution. I'm thinking Inception. We're like, it's going to be crazy. But it's never really been an issue. Every time he looks at his watch, he's like, oh, yeah, it's only been a few minutes, or it's only been like an hour. It's fine.
That's true.
I don't feel like he's ever had a concern. I haven't finished the book, obviously.
That is true. Maybe that is going to happen in the future.
Maybe it's foreshadowing.
Yeah, maybe it is. Well, honestly, it could be, though. They always do that with a timing issue.
Yeah, it seems like a big thing, especially when you're doing time. What is it? Dilation? Something like that.
Maybe he's going to get to the big reveal, and then he's going to be so flustered, and the Stormfather is just going to bowl him over like a bowling pin, and then he's going to get lost, and then he's barely going to crawl out of the vision right before the 10th day starts. I can see this happening. I'm giving a prediction right now.
Okay, I can
and he's
see
going to crawl right out, and he's find his way out of the spiritual realm, and the Stormfather's been almost a bad guy this whole time, and he's made it through. And
then he's going to say a quick one-liner right there, and the Stormfather's going to say, these words are accepted. Right then.
Wow.
I'm just building on your prediction.
That would be huge.
I don't get credit for that first part, but if that second thing happens.
Yeah, this has absolutely no foundation based on the book other than we know time is crazy, and this is what authors tend to do when they talk about things.
But what about your spiritual realm experience?
Yeah, I will say though first, he did skip time. Like I said, he missed an entire day immediately, and that was because he was spinning through like the spiritual realm and not able to understand things. And maybe that was a little bit of the intention. I know you were saying that the spiritual realm is really confusing and everything. Yeah. It is a reminder, one of the main 3 realms. There's physical, cognitive, and spiritual realm. And even Hoid says he does not understand the spiritual realm. Even the gods don't really understand it, although they live in it. That's where they mainly exist. Place. But it's interesting. I was interested to see how he was going to write it, because it's a realm that everything, including time, is happening all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't even know if our brains can comprehend that, like, let alone like understand reading that in a book.
Yeah, I almost just consider it as like, this is the culmination of all activity and life and everything, just all in one place. Like every action sparks a reaction and does this chain of events. Like that's why the visions exist. It's like all of that action, all of those happenings, all of that life exists in one place. Yep. And it's all has happened and will happen and hasn't happened. It's like all just right there. Yeah, I guess that's what makes sense for the visions. But I'm sure that sentence didn't make any sense.
Well, it's interesting because I think they're getting lost in their own thoughts right when they get in there, and their thoughts are
Shallan
bringing
and Relaine and Renar, and they're the ones who are like just trying to travel on their own thoughts, and they're
getting
lost.
And that's how Dalinar started too. Like he was seeing himself through the time and everything, and maybe that's how it really works. Is like the spiritual realm is brings you to like yourself and the thoughts that you're thinking and brings you to those moments. But after I say that, I need to make this clear. Okay. We are the everyday fans. So there are clearly things we are going to miss. And we are very grateful for you guys to help us understand those things.
Comment section is the best part of these videos. So if we miss something or we say something wrong, best bet, take a gander at the comments. Like the video on your way down. So as you scroll down, like it and then read the comments. See what everybody is chatting about, because oftentimes we will miss some things. But yes, this is our experience as casual fans.
And that is why you're here, right? Though, because we're talking together as just buddies that have read this book, wanted to chat about it, and you're invited.
This is the Fun Book Club. The Fun Book Club.
The Fun
Book Club. If you're reading
along
club. With us, that's what this is built for.
Yes, there are other channels out there that are phenomenal that you can check out. 17th Shard, we always reference, and things like that go way deep into that stuff, and it's good. It's fun.
Speaking of deep conversation, I have a question for you.
Yes, let's hear it.
Maybe this is a question indirectly for the comment section. I've asked this before about the power of connection. It's confusing to me.
Okay.
As it is to a lot of people, a lot of the Rapho questions are connection related. So, in the spiritual realm, they're having a conversation with Jezrien and Ishar, okay? And one of the things that I was told by a commenter, I was asking about writing. Like, why can't he understand writing when, like, he's making a connection? Because it's a communication, right? It's like a language, is the way I considered it. And the response was that what connection does, it basically means as if you had grown up in that place. Does that make sense?
Yep.
As if you had grown up there, like, you wouldn't have learned to read because they just don't read. So, like, that would never make sense. But then in this vision, he's talking to Jezrien and Ishar, and he can't understand any of the cultural references. And that doesn't make sense to me. Because as if you had grown up there, you would know all of those cultural references. He specifically says he doesn't understand what people are doing, like the things they're doing with their hands and the cultural references. But he should. In my mind, he should.
I understand what you're saying. But that would also mean that you automatically gain all the knowledge from that time. Like cultural references it's like knowing history, is it not?
It's more like knowing idioms and knowing like, oh, this is the way they shake hands. Like when I was living in Bolivia, they shake hands differently. Yeah. Like you just know that. It's an inherent thing. But so like that would be something you should know.
That's true. But idioms are kind of, if you think about your own life, I think about mine, it's just like you kind of just figure it out through experience. And I know,
but you would learn that as you grew up there.
You would, but it's not necessarily like the language that you're connected to, because like I don't know. Like,
he was specifically talking about like hand motions and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like they were doing things that he just didn't understand, and that's where I was like, "Let me know. I am confused because the way it was explained to me that shouldn't make sense. I'm like, he should be able to understand that. So I said, ask Marty this question, and I've now asked.
Yeah, well, I thought that you were going to talk about the commenter who mentioned that the Chasm Fiend's friend's story was not canon. And that was clearly incorrect based off of our book.
We now know a lot more about them, which is kind of wild, too.
I know. So we'll get to that later, but...
Are we allowed to spoil the Chasm Fiend story?
Well, I'm talking about it a little bit.
I'm just saying, I reached out to Dragonsteel behind the scenes, and I asked about that. And apparently the stories are intended to be just for those who are collecting the cards, and they don't want them distributed.
Well, yes, you're like... The copyright, though. I think it's more of the copyright issue, right? Of taking pictures of them and sending them out on the internet and things like that. Like, I don't know, kind of like artwork. That's what I thought.
I think the artwork
makes sense. But the story, though, like, we won't spoil the stories or anything. Although, I will say there's a Chasm Friend story in there. Yes. And someone clearly pointed out to me and said, like, well, the Chasm Friend thing is not canon.
That's true.
And I'm like... They said that.
They did say that.
They were wrong. Based off of this book, clearly wrong. That was immediately what I thought.
It was cool to learn more about the Chasm Fiends for sure.
Yeah, super good. But before we get there, we'll go with Dalinar. So Dalinar, going to the first place where the humans arrived, he has that cool experience where they're able to rip open a portal, where they're able to see their homeland on fire while they're coming into here. Which is interesting because they kind of lead us to believe that they had traveled through Shadesmar to get to where they are, to get to Roshar, and then opened up a portal there. But that does not look like that. Because if you're seeing the burning, like...
My assumption was that it was like an Elsecaller portal.
Yeah, but Elsecaller portals...
their world and this world. Roshar.
Yes, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I was under the impression that you could only do it from the spiritual realm, or from the cognitive realm to the physical realm.
Oh. And we do see that happen a couple of times in these parts.
Yes.
The spiritual, I keep saying that.
Yeah.
The cognitive to physical happens quite a bit.
Yes.
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a space thing, like you can travel, or maybe it's both. Maybe they went into Shadesmar, traveled through Shadesmar, and traveled back. But then why would they be able to see their world on fire through it?
Yep, and they're seeing the birds flying in, and like,
oh yeah, because they said like the birds snuck through, the dogs snuck through.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And the Stormfather's very sad about the dogs.
Yes,
and those are little dogs.
Well, it's surprising
I
they
love
talk
those.
about like they had the surges and they just misused them.
Or maybe it was Wit that was sad about the dogs. I don't know.
Probably
Anyways.
was Wit. But yeah, they were just misusing the surges, and that's why the world was destroyed.
Yes.
Like, wow. That's wild.
Which is really crazy.
Yeah.
And then the next part is too with it. We find out later that honor lets them gain access to the surges again.
Yeah, so they have to basically give up their surges and then get them back again.
Yep.
So they are willing to give up their surges to then get them back under oath, and in doing that, they're connected to honor, and he gives them that focused power, I guess.
Which is super fascinating.
It is super cool.
All of a sudden, they have to make a deal with honor, even though their previous god was odium.
Wild.
Which
they're
is
like, yeah, we shouldn't have followed that guy. And he's like, well, sounds like, yeah, they were enemies with honor, and now they have to work with him.
Which is so fascinating, the whole idea that they were on a planet where it sounds like their single god was odium. And so they were raised to believe in this god odium. And the whole time, like, they didn't really know. They might not have known that there was another option to, like, this is an evil god that you're following. And
we still know almost nothing about that world and what happened and why it was on fire. And then the one lady who's super sad because she was able to escape, but all of her people died.
Yep.
That was awful.
Yeah. Super crazy.
But that scene leads to one of the craziest quotes I've read in a Brandon Sanderson book.
Ooh, let's hear it.
I've said a lot of quotes that I love. So I think this is an opportunity to say a quote that I'm like, oof.
You hate?
I did not love it.
Whoa, let's hear it.
I found it specifically to read out. And you'll recognize this part. I literally paused the book and I was like, I got to write that down.
Oh
I've
my
never heard
goodness.
Sanderson say something like this. He's like, tell me if you remember exactly where this is. But he says, that's the answer, he thought, excited. That has to be possible. And it will come straight to me if I play my role right and don't disrupt what's happening.
Oh.
That just feels like, I don't know, the fakiest, like, foreshadowing, obvious, this is totally going to work if I don't mess it up. I just feel like that's something that'd be written in like a 17-page cardboard book.
What? Remind me of the part of where this happens.
That's exactly when Dalinar's thinking he's going to get an honor blade.
Oh, yes.
He's like, oh, this will be perfect if I don't mess it up.
Yes.
Like, okay, that could have been deleted. It would have been fine.
I think. Oh. So we will address this more later, but I have not watched any of these videos because I'm trying to not be spoiled.
There is a lot of negativity out there. I read that
there's a lot of negativity.
Me. I'm not like, wow, Brandon Sanderson, I can't believe that guy.
Yes.
But there have to be moments. We obviously love Sanderson. There are going to be moments that I'm like, not my favorite.
Well, yeah.
Like White Sands.
I will say, though, there was a lot more of that in this book than any of his other books I've read. That literally took me out of the book.
That is my least favorite thing in reading. When there's a moment that I'm like, I'm out of the world now. Now I'm just reading a book.
I thought about you all the time because
thank you.
Because every single time the characters, this happened so often. The characters would say something. I'm like, that would not be said by a real human being.
Yes.
Yes, I don't know why that happened so much because he was so good at character development in all of the other books. And it was his best quality about.
I still think he's one of the best to do it.
Yes,
as far as real human characters to do real human things.
Yes,
and it's crazy because you can write however many zillion pages are in this book, and it can be 5 times where someone says something and you're like, that's weird. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And it can still leave that taste in your mouth, even though it's so small of a part of the book. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Oh, I'll tell you specifically, or not very specifically, but just it felt me. Yeah, generally. Generally. There you go. That's the word. That's what we're here for, folks. But the characters felt less deep for me this time around than they have in the past. Yeah. And the biggest part for me is that for some reason, he felt the need this time to have his own characters explain why their differences are everyone else may have different experiences. So Shallan's like, like, yeah, I'm having a problem with like this depression thing or whatever, but it helps me to do this. But obviously not everyone else is the same and stuff like that. But I'm just like, okay.
Same thing happened with Kaladin and Szeth.
Same thing happens
Exactly
with them. They say it over and over and over
Yeah.
again. I'm like, Sanderson, we know. We already know
get
that.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to say that because real people don't put like
Disclaimers?
little disclaimers in front of everything they say.
Qualifications? Yeah,
and
no,
that's
for
why
sure.
we loved Kaladin's depression stories. We loved his depression stories. Can you imagine I'm saying
We
that?
appreciate
We appreciated them in the other
Brutal.
books because he didn't put caveats on them.
Yes.
And he
It
was
was
just
raw. It was real.
very raw, felt real. It was
Yep.
just him just experiencing it and like
Yes.
anyways, that's the one thing that I would say, like with all the negative comments going around, like I would say I'm like something changed here where like for some reason he wasn't just like, clicking with his characters like he normally was. I'm still enjoying the book. And we still have yet to finish the book.
Yes,
and
I
I'm
think-
depending on a huge Sanderlanche, as they always
that's what
are.
I was gonna say, because we have to recognize this book on its own is a Sanderlanche-ish because it's kind of the end of a 5-book series.
Yes.
But I think I went into it thinking the Sanderlanche was going to start on page 6.
Yeah, that is true.
I think that was my mistake, knowing like this is still a Stormlight Archive book, and the first 1,000 pages are build up, and you're building a
Yes.
story. So I'm like, I think I'm expecting too much of like a reveal, and I'm not getting it. I'm like, well, what's the deal? Like he's done that 4 times. Why didn't I expect that to happen in book 5? I don't know. I don't know what happened to me. And then
it's what happened to you is the Mistborn series.
Yeah, it might have
Okay. Mistborn book
like
3.
Lost Metal and
Lost Metal,
yeah.
Mistborn book 3. Every single one of those books, you're like, holy cow, I'm on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Yes.
You see everything coming together
Yep.
so well from the
Yep.
other books. And this one doesn't feel like that quite like all the way. And I did read one thing that I don't know if they were quoting Sanderson or someone was making a guess on it, but that he may have accidentally written too many character perspectives into this book. And so from switching from character to
There's
character,
a lot of switching.
it's hard to get someone totally immersed in one character's feelings.
I can see that.
and
Yeah.
things too. So I can see
I
that
don't
too.
feel as distracted by interludes anymore. I feel like this book is less distracting with interludes than others have been.
Yeah.
They're not as long. They're like a page and then the back
They're
of that
super
page.
short.
They're super short.
And I love them.
So
Honestly,
that's-
the interludes are my favorite part right now.
That's
Yeah.
surprising to me because I really like the interludes in this book.
Yeah.
And in like the first 2-3 books, I'm like, who even is this person? I was just right in like a Kaladin battle, and now I have to learn about this random city that's murdering people. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, they're great looking back, but when you're so deep, like on the edge of your seat, you're like, oh my goodness, a 30-minute interlude that I have to listen to. So it's
Yeah.
harder. It was harder then. It's easier now. I think it's better in this book, maybe because it's more of a culmination.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to talk about before we kind of go on to a couple storylines that I really, really like.
Yes.
I feel like in some of these spiritual realm visions, I'm getting a lot of like telling me things.
Yes.
I don't know if that is just my feeling.
No,
of it,
you're right.
But I think, for example, when Honor's doing all this stuff and explaining how this is going to work with a new bond, I feel like I looked for in the book as well. It's like really 4 sentences that kind of explain something that's been this big haze of unknown for what is 10 years now. And then it's like 4 sentences like, this is exactly what happened. You're like, whoa, I needed it. Like, I need that as an emotional experience.
Yes.
I wasn't ready to just be like, yeah, here's the answer. Here you go. Move on.
Yep.
It's like that, maybe a couple moments like that. I was just like, oh, the buildup was there. The hype was crazy. I wanted these like, it didn't have to be magical. And Navani mentions this, like, wow, it's crazy. We're just doing this in a tent with regular people. Like, that's how it happened. That's real.
Yeah.
I get
Which
that.
I did enjoy. That's
fine.
kind of cool.
Totally.
Like,
because
yeah.
things do over thousands and thousands of years become this crazy legend. And you go back and like, they're real people.
That's Sanderson at his best.
That part was great. Because you're
Yes.
like, yeah, these were just real people trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And the Harietium as well was the same way. It's like they're just trying to figure it out, trying to see what they can do with like leaving Talon in there and having that conversation. Like, what do we do? Because they were really scared and worried about it. Like, that was real. I liked that. I just didn't like Honor just explaining stuff. And then they did the reveal, and I'm like, well, shoot, that wasn't even Honor. Like, maybe that's the problem.
Wait, did I miss something?
Yeah, Honor was one of the assassins.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I know what you're
And
talking
I'm like,
about.
oh, he probably had no idea. He's like, we're just gonna do this thing, and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah. Wait,
like-
what did he say specifically
I
that you thought was a reveal?
literally just realized that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a reveal. What do you mean?
But which part did you think was a reveal by Honor? That you said like he said something and you're like, wow, like that's a reveal. Then you're like, oh, it was just one of the Ghost Bloods.
Oh, not that it was a reveal. That it was just like explaining the rules of things.
Yeah.
Super matter of factly.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, hey, this is super important and giving a little bit more gravitas.
Yeah.
It was just, this is everything.
No, I thought
This is
that
how
too.
it's gonna work. This is how you need to do it.
But
I'll
then
give
I
you
was
your-
questioning that. I'm like, well, would Sanderson have him saying the right thing there just to like for our sakes, like just so we can understand those answers to the questions?
They could have just known it. The Ghost Bloods know a lot.
That is true.
They
That is
could have
true.
just known it. I'm gonna
I
leave
think
that
so, too.
one in the air.
Yeah. I don't really know if anyone's gonna know the answer to that one.
Anyway, that was the last thing I want to talk about with like the spiritual / some questions and concerns that I had. But I don't know if you want to talk more about Dalinar because I want to go into Adolin.
Well, let's get through Dalinar real quick. There are some crazy things that happen. So like highlights that go through there. The Stormfather, even more sus.
Oh, so he's just getting worse.
Super
and worse.
sus.
He's like, I'm not going to tell you why, but I'm not going to help you unless you leave right now.
Yeah, I know.
Right now.
You're like, can't do it. But what does he do? Even at the end, he's telling him, like he's clearly lying to Dalinar.
Yes.
And he's
I'm
like, I
telling
should
you
have
what
lied
need
to you
hear. The
more.
lies you need. Yeah.
The lies you need. Like that does not sound like something the Stormfather should be saying.
No.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you start to learn a lot more. Like he was there at that time. He wasn't just the wind. Like he was there. He was involved.
Yes.
And
he was
tell
involved
you.
for some reason. Yeah. And he was talking
He doesn't
with.
tell you why.
Was he talking with Honor at that one part? I can't remember. It was.
I don't think so.
He was talking with someone at the and he's like, I wish I could hear what the Stormfather was saying to Honor.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe it was
I don't
Wit.
remember
Maybe
that
it was
part.
Wit talking to Honor.
But
Anyways,
it was very interesting.
We haven't heard what that was, anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are you thinking about my theory about the Stormfather taking up the power of Honor?
And then if he used to, I'm still on the fence.
Yeah.
I'm not
are you
saying
seeing
no.
it anymore? Like, have you been
I
reading
feel
this?
like I'm
Have you
seeing
thought
it a
that about
little
that?
less.
Yeah.
'Cause
Honestly,
I think
was
there's
kinda
something negative in there. I think the Stormfather did something. I think the Stormfather is directly responsible for why the gods of Roshar are no longer able to communicate. I think he took some of that power. Because remember, okay, this
How do you
is
figure?
something-
Which gods?
Okay,
Cultivation and Odium?
because
they
the
communicate
Stormfather
all-
specifically.
Yeah. Oh,
The
the
unknown
wind.
gods of the wind of Roshar.
The wind, the stone.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think that is a part of it. Because the reason now was it Nail? Yeah,
Yep.
Nail said something about this, and he's like, and Kaladin's like, what's crazy? Like I'm starting to hear the wind communicate with me. He's like, that's nothing. Like, okay, it's definitely something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was very cryptic about that, and I was like, I think something happened because something squashed those powers that used to exist on Roshar.
Yep.
And that's why Wit can communicate with them because they know him.
Yep.
Before they were squished by whatever power squished them.
Yeah.
That's not a great word
Squished
for it, but the powers were squished. They were squashed.
Super squished.
Yeah, so that's kind of my sidecar theory
yeah,
for the Stormfather.
Yeah. Speaking of voices speaking in your head,
Oh,
we'll talk about Szeth.
those voices.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Szeth.
We'll go to Szeth for a moment. Who do you think the voice in Szeth's head is as a child?
So
Is
at
it a
first I was
spren?
like, it was the high spren. It was his high
Yes.
spren. But now I'm like, I don't know because it talks to everyone.
Yeah, kind of feeling like it's the unmade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yes, I totally agree with you now because they talk about the Unmade and he's unwilling to say anything about it to Kaladin,
Yeah.
and it did control and manipulate the Shin people, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of seeming shady. Like
It
with it, like
seems pretty sus. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to help you. Like, oh, you definitely have to kill those guys.
Yeah, seriously. Like,
Yeah, I think it tries to break people intentionally. But yeah, I think it's a good theory. I can't believe that
Okay.
didn't cross my mind, but I
okay,
believe you.
Cool. Yeah, I know. I've been. It's been leading me that way for a while. I'm like, oh, this is.
I didn't really think about it because I literally just dismissed it as like, oh, that's kind of a spren thing.
Well, I thought it was a spren, but I'm like, it kind of doesn't feel like a spren.
it's just a voice.
It's
Like,
just
yeah.
a voice, yeah, and other people are hearing it too.
And a sketchy voice.
I was kind of wondering at first, is
sketchy.
it the wind or is it like
No.
other spren? Or
Yeah.
maybe he's saying it's a rock spren. Definitely not. It's a yeah.
Well,
but
he sees the rock as holy, and I'm sure at some point the Unmade is going to use that of like, I'm holy because I'm made of rock. Maybe it'll be manifest as a thunderclast or something, and be like, oh,
that'd be
look
pretty
at me.
interesting.
But no, anyway, it does manipulate those people. So
Yeah.
Manipulates Szeth too, and I feel so bad for him. He's such a good guy.
I know. What do you think about Szeth's story?
I like Szeth.
This is probably the best
such
part
a
of the book
sad
so far.
Story. I would agree with you.
Yes.
I really, really like Adolin's story as well. So
Yes.
that. But Szeth specifically, because he's done everything he can to do what's right, but is constantly faced with the fact that there is not a clear right and wrong in the world, but he tries to, I'm going to say, pretend like there is, because he's trusting people that are telling him that there is. And he's just going along with those people because he's so innocently thinking that there is a right and a wrong. But you get a lot more depth of his story, like his parents having issues and his sister and him being taken off to this thing, and his dad like, no, I'm going to go with you. I will go with you anytime, anywhere.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh,
It's a very real and a heart-wrenching story.
It is. It's very heart-wrenching. And right after I say like it's my favorite part of the story. The one part I'm not buying though is Kaladin's revelation where he's like, he's Tien. He's the same as Tien. I'm like, no, he's not.
He's
like,
really not.
He's very
it's a
different.
Very different story.
Yeah,
I can understand him thinking, like, trying to make it work in his head. Like, oh, he's not me. He's more like Tien.
Yeah.
He is more like Tien, but he has a very different story.
Yeah, he's not innocent like Tien is.
No, and he's a rigid, and he's a very, like, and the reason he's so good at what he applies himself to is he is incredibly disciplined.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that cannot be broken out of him. He's literally thinking he's doing all of this, and then it will culminate with him committing suicide. Like that's literally the whole premise.
Crazy.
And he's like, that's fine. I'm going to fight all these people with everything I have and then end it.
Yeah.
Like, that's brutal. And the whole story is Kaladin's like, well, okay, we need to change this.
Yeah.
And then Nail shows up. He's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, that's what he's supposed to do.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I agree with you. I really love his story, like the background. You were talking about the family.
Yeah.
His dad. It puts you in that situation. Like,
his dad's the best.
Yeah, his dad's awesome. He's
dad's
like trying to follow his son everywhere because he loves him, wants to help him. And I'm like, his dad is just dedicated, just drop everything. I'm like, how inspiring is that?
But his dad's also no slouch.
Yes.
Like every position his dad is in, they're like, well, this is the best administrator we've ever had.
He's just a rock star
He's like,
everywhere.
Yeah, just really good at everything.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
It is cool. Part. But it is interesting though, because it shows that sometimes it can be, you can be good to a fault because he's neglecting his relationship with his own wife over it. Yeah. Which is so sad at the same time.
You don't hear a ton about that story.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if there's more to it because he does mention right at the end of this that they were having problems long before they even found the stone.
Yes,
and nothing had happened before that we know of. So like, there's definitely parts of it, but you're right. He does definitely, maybe because of those issues they were having, he's like, well then 100% of my focus is going to my kids. When obviously you should put 100% of your focus into your spouse and then in that relationship focus on your kids. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yes.
But so that seems like he said, well, we were already having problems, so I just put everything into my kids and he's going to follow him anywhere.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. And we got to the cool parts too, where he's starting his pilgrimage, and so he's starting to train, which is fascinating. We haven't gotten to the training part yet, though, so no spoilers there. But very, very excited about that.
But we know more about it, and I do like it's kind of a pseudo pilgrimage they're going on right now. Collecting, they have like 6 honor blades.
You have like tons of them.
You got to make a bigger deal of that.
I know. Are
They're
they
both
like
strapped with like 4 honor blades? And
is like Kaladin not trying these things out? Like, come on, like that's what I would be doing.
It kills me because they haven't made any mention of that. But like, there's only been 1 honor blade or 2 maybe that anyone's ever seen in the first 4 books, and it was like the biggest deal ever.
Yeah.
And now they've got like 6 of them, and no one's doing anything.
I know.
They just sit there.
I don't know why.
It makes me sad.
We haven't seen Szeth. I thought for sure he would be. So that fight, he gets pulled into Shadesmar, and he's battling multiple at the same time. Yeah. Why does he not pick up one of their shard blades after killing one and then using that in his own at the same time? His own.
I think he feels like he's not allowed to.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because he hasn't taken any of the honor blades into any of the fights, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I was hoping he was going to Kaladin was going to wake up one morning and he was like doing some sort of magical kata.
Yes.
That's just in my mind what was going to happen. Like he was going to be remembering his training with each of the blades and like swapping between them and throwing them and catching them and doing all this cool stuff with all the blades. But he hasn't done that yet. So
yeah, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, it would be pretty awesome.
I'm still holding out hope, to be honest. That it's
freaking cool, dude. Freaking cool. I mean, that needs to happen.
He has to be. He did train for this. He should be able to like work with all of them fluidly. because he knows he's
This
trained
is
with every single one.
It's Sanderson's building. Like there's no way Sanderson did not see this coming. Like he has every single blade, and like he's gonna use them. I'm telling you right now. That's what Sanderson's going to do.
It's gonna happen.
There's no way you set all that up and then don't use them like that.
Yeah,
so.
he just tosses them into the sea.
Yeah, he's like, okay, well, that was cool. I got them all. Like,
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So, anyways, fascinating. But yes, who does he fight in his pilgrimage already? So he fights a few people in the Shadesmar.
You're not going to give me with their names.
No.
Each of these people do have names. He remembers them, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm remembering
Moss
the
is
Shadesmar
one of
fight. And was there any other one?
So Shadesmar was the Else Caller.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't the Lightweaver, because the Lightweaver was its own temple. So we know they got the Else Caller. We know they have the Lightweaver and the Truth Watcher. Those attacked at the same time.
Yeah.
But he wasn't even looking for
it was
the Else Caller.
Else Caller. Yeah.
But who was he looking for? Because the Else Caller showed up, but he wasn't even looking for the Else Caller.
I can't remember.
That's gonna be a good one. But he has 6.
Yeah. But what I was more going for is like I just want to remember like those fights and like those scenes because I thought they were way cool. Is
Shadesmar scene.
Shadesmar where he's able to pull out Nightblood.
Yeah.
And use Nightblood in Shadesmar. Which was very
wild.
interesting.
I loved the Stonewalker one too because that's when he gets to fight as a full Skybreaker.
Yes, that was in the last part. Yeah. Yes, way cool. And then his fight with the illusions, where he's able to stab the illusion right through the head
and then almost gets murdered by the Truth Watcher. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. Okay. Yep. That was
pretty wild. It was an old lady.
It was an old lady. Yeah. Clearly all affected by the Unmade, but it's interesting. Again, that's probably my favorite part of the story so far. That and the Adolin side of things.
Yeah.
Kaladin just feels different to this book.
He feels a lot different.
Way different. I don't know why.
I don't know if it's like he's been softened by his experience or anything, but like he is a formidable warrior.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's not that bad with words in a way that he's like, oh, okay, I guess, I can't really square off against Nail. I'm like, get mad or something.
Yeah.
Like, I know. Come on. Just feels like he's a lot more I don't know, subdued in this version of it. But I did want to talk about Szeth specifically as he's doing all these fights. I wanted to... there was something I was going to say. It'll come back to me as we chat. But yeah, so I agree with the Kaladin situation for sure.
Yeah, way interesting. I do want to move on to Adolin though. So
okay, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Adolin part is also the best part of this book.
It's really great. It's up there for sure. Yeah. Whether it's this or the fights with Szeth, I can't tell, but Adolin's part's great.
I absolutely love it.
It just feels so much for Adolin. You're like, he's so awesome.
Yes, it is. And it makes you feel awesome with that. It makes me think about the strategy of war. It makes me want to find cool, I'm like, chess doesn't quite give me that satisfaction. It makes me crave, if anyone knows a game out there like this, I would love to play a game that mimics war just like Towers does.
I've heard that maybe not mimicking war exactly, but I've heard Go is a great game to play if you want to learn more about like real strategy type games.
Interesting.
Have you ever played Go?
No, I haven't.
So it's I think...
Is that the one with the white chips and black chips?
Yeah, 64 by 64 is like huge board, massive board. And all you do is place your chips onto that board wherever you want.
Interesting.
And then you go about capturing territory on this board and trying to hold the territory that you have from being taken in from other things. You can like fortify different places.
Sounds fascinating.
It's really, really fun and really, really hard.
Really?
Like I've played a little bit with my brother because he was in Japan for a while and it's a lot more popular out there. But yeah, so I've played with him and he destroys me. And then I tried playing like little games online and I'm like, I don't know how to play this game nearly well enough.
These people are awesome.
The cool thing about it is they have these big tournaments and everything, but there are like styles of play. And it's cool because there's not one style that's the best. There's like defensive styles that win tournaments, and there's like aggressive styles that win tournaments. Like there's two different styles, but they're both equally.
That's very much
to
chess
win.
though as well. Like chess has like the styles and different types of play.
It's true, but it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
from what I've heard.
Interesting. I'm not saying it's like not.
No, I would look into it. I would say.
No, that's awesome. That's way cool. Yeah, because I'd love to find a game that feels like that. Like there are two types of games. I'm in the business world all the time, and I would love to have a game that teaches me like about like strategy and like making a business flourish and like that experience. Or like war is always cool. Like Risk okay, this is the thing. Risk gets the closest I've found to like feeling like war. You're moving your troops around, like trying to come on everyone. But the thing is, the biggest difference between real war, the real war and like Risk is exactly what Adolin says. You should have an advantage by multiples with having like even just a slight advantage in numbers. Yeah. But Risk, it's still all chance because you're rolling dice.
Basically, at the end of the day, the statistics will eventually balance out.
Yes, it doesn't matter if you have high ground or if you're coming in with like different types of troops and things like that. It just, I don't know. I would love a game that could tell me that. And that's why I've got YouTube, so I can have thousands of people who hear this video can tell me what the game is out there that I would absolutely love.
That would be fun. What do you think the game that Sanderson used as a almost template for towers was?
I will tell you that he cheated. That's what he did.
He just created his own?
I think that's what most authors do in this situation. He may not have. He may have used it off a real game. But the thing is, like, he could make up crap for every single thing that he said, and you will put together a game in your mind that, like, yeah, makes sense. That's what they're doing.
I have a game in my mind for sure.
Yeah. You're like, okay, like, it kind of works. Like, maybe I could make this game, but it wouldn't work because it's not a real game. Yeah. Unless... The one game I do think that he could be thinking about is because he has cards all over the table is Magic the Gathering, and he plays a lot of Magic the Gathering.
I have never played Magic the Gathering.
I've played a few times. I've played a few times. I haven't played enough to actually know the strategies and such, but...
Does it feel like a similar strategy type game?
Not like that.
Or is it
like,
more
not
like
a
Pokemon
Towers
style?
It's more, you could call it more like Pokemon, but it's not. It's more like...
I don't mean that they're the same game. I just mean like the style of like, it's more of a face-off.
Yeah, we're going to get lit up by the comments for that. But no, coming from people that don't know anything about Magic the Gathering.
Genre.
But no, what I'm saying though is this game, it almost feels like it's Magic the Gathering plus like some sort of like role-playing game, like where you're moving pieces across a board, different like advantages and stuff like that. Honestly, I bet the commenters are going to tell me like just play like Dungeons and Dragons or like any kind of game like that.
That's not the same thing.
Like, I don't know. I know, but maybe though, because you're going through and you have like people with
but it's all controlled by the Dungeon Master. I don't know. I feel like though that's a little bit more like a challenge than a war.
Well, yes, it probably would depend on what.
And you have to be able to face off against someone and try to strategically win instead of trying to strategically.
It would probably depend on what kind of game that you play with that. I bet there's some more that are different.
Well, let us know if we should do some game reviews, gameplay.
We did play one with
podcasts.
Hayden. Hayden tried to create one.
We've never done it. We've never done it on the channel, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
we've
never
true. Done like a gameplay.
Well, I'm saying like we did one with Hayden that was about war and diplomacy. And
yeah. What did you call it? Roll of Empires, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But we had to roll the dice, and we had like all of our attributes that we were increasing and things like that. And it was fascinating. It was really interesting and stuff. I think he's trying to get to where what we're talking about is just strategy and diplomacy and war and stuff. That's what I want in a game. I want all of those things. I want to chat with people. I want to make alliances, and I want
all of it. Yeah.
I don't care if it's an iPhone game, a board game, a computer game. Don't care. I want to play it. I want to play it so bad. It sounds like fun.
It's going to be a text-based RPG, so
yeah. Okay. I'm down. Whatever it is, as long as it's fun. So, but yes, the Adolin part, him teaching towers, him going through his experience of the fighting, his
It was cool to see a real element of him as a general.
Yes.
To just be like, he knows exactly what he's doing. I love that he's like pulling on his I am the son of the Blackthorn. Like, I am a formidable warrior, and he does that awesome. So he just charges through the lines. He's like, to save the other Shardbearers. So cool, but he also comes back and he has these conversations where he's like, I am here to win. And he learns a lot about working with the generals that are already there. I think that was the last part, but he doesn't want to step on anyone's toes, but he's like, I am a very experienced general. Like, these are my ideas. This is what we should do. He's humble enough to teach the other guy towers, but also he's running this defense and he's doing a very good job of it. So I just think it's cool that you get to see he's not a Radiant. And it stings a little bit for him, I think.
Yep.
He's not a Radiant, but he's very much like, I am still formidable as a human to be able to help in this effort, even not as a Radiant. I think that's a cool story to tell, especially in a book that's becoming filled with a lot of magical powers. I mean, he does have a Shardblade, but it's still nice to see more of a human making an impact.
Yep. I don't buy his... I refuse to ever become a Radiant, though.
Oh, no, yeah. Nobody believes that.
Yeah, I'm like, it's true, but I don't know if I'm not buying it.
Shallan has 2 Spren, too.
As of the writing style or because of, like, that's what he's saying. Like I don't know, the way it's written, I'm just like, come on, like I make me believe it more that he doesn't actually would. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I don't think we need to believe it more because he specifically
He just keeps saying I
would never do it because I would never leave Maya. I'm like, maybe
saying,
you don't have to, or maybe Maya can be your
friend.
He says
that,
Relax.
and he's like, and it's because it would make my dad proud, and I don't want to do that. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, it just bothers me. The
relationship thing
and
really
I'm like,
bugs me too.
It does because I know he's trying to address that like feeling, that experience that he had with his dad. He found out that his dad killed his mother.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel right for the whole thing. Like it, for some reason, it just like
it doesn't feel right at all.
He had a way different relationship with Dalinar in the first 2 books, at least first 3 books.
I had the same issue in the last book, Rhythm of War. I'm like, he's overblowing this significantly. Obviously, it's a big deal, but he knows the story now. He knows it was an accident, and he knows it broke his dad as well. He wasn't just this crazy cavalier like, oh, I'm just gonna go kill people. Like it was a horrible, tragic, terrible event that happened. Yeah. He knows that, but he also knows, like, Dalinar has been dedicating his life since then to improving things, and Adolin's like, yeah, I'm throwing it all away. I hate you now. Everything you taught me is just going to make me mad.
Yeah, it's just annoying and stuff. I'm like, come on. Yeah, like, it really bothers me.
They're working hard to save the world and also run the largest government and country in the world, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm never going to listen to anything he says ever again.
Yes.
And I hate him.
So Sanderson is really big into making sure that the characters actually experience like the trauma that they go through and like what that would do to a character. Yeah. But I don't think that's what it would do to Adolin. I think he would feel depressed about it and sad, and maybe like a little bit more like reserved from it, like his father, like just sad about it. But I don't think he would like all of a sudden hate everything his father does and did, and like thinks that everything he does is annoying and like.
Yeah, especially because of all the stuff we learned in the first 2 books about him trying to defend his father's honor. Yes. When he was seeing visions, and when he knew the stories. There's no way he didn't know about the conquest of his dad.
And this is what it is, because in the first book, he does have conflict with his father, and he doesn't agree with him, and it feels way different.
And they get over it.
Yeah, they get over it, and it's like a real like argument. But for some reason, this feels different. For some reason, the characters are just slightly off in this book. I don't know what it is, but like
I think that relationship is off for me. But I think Adolin is really nailed. Other than that weird feud with his dad, I shouldn't really
put it all on. On everything.
I know what you're saying though. That relationship with his dad does feel weird, but I love everything else about the Adolin story.
Yes, it's super, super good. I'm super fascinated to see where it goes with Maya. I still think he's going to more fully bond Maya to become a Radiant.
We're both on that way. We're both on that train for sure.
That's going to happen.
Were there any cool interludes you loved?
I was about to bring up Moash, and I totally saw this coming. I don't know, like, oh man, I can't remember if it was in the last one or not, where we talked about. Oh yeah. So they mentioned how Moash's eyes had been burnt out, which we didn't know why he had gone blind in the 4th book, because like he had the whole encounter with Navani, and then his eyes were burnt like because of the experience or whatever. Yeah. And then it was just sockets left in his eyes, and like we didn't know why he went blind because it didn't explain in the 4th book.
But now he can see lines.
Well, then the next thing happens is Odium comes up to and meets that herald. Yeah. That is working on like basically making spikes out of Stormlight. Yeah. And as soon as I read that part, I almost called you. And I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. Like they're going to give this to Moash and he's going to be able to see again. Yeah. And he's going to
see investiture now instead of seeing.
He's going to become the first Radiant Inquisitor.
yes. So, Stormlight Inquisitor instead of Steel Inquisitor.
Oh yeah, Stormlight Inquisitor is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like he's got spikes in his eyes now. Like, that's crazy.
Super crazy, and it implies a lot that like okay, it's not just the investiture of Scadrial.
It starts to bring the world and Cosmere together a little bit more. Like these are concepts that tie into the worlds.
You could do this with other metals.
But it also gives you a good reason to say why Wit is so interested in collecting all of these different types of investiture.
Yeah. Boy, that implies a lot though too, because if you were to use hemalurgy with spikes.
Yep.
Now I can already see the questions being asked to Sanderson in spoiler cast.
What if the spike was made out of the same metal that they use in those daggers to draw out light? What if it was that metal?
And then you do what with it? I don't know, just do
spike.
something cool.
No, you could almost spike that through a spren.
and take its powers.
Yeah. Put it into a human.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, see, this is the thing, is like the implications for hemalurgy with these things is
if you can
very,
mix
very
hemalurgy
fascinating.
and Stormlight, then we're going to have to make a whole new video.
Well, that's what it is like, so, because hemalurgy, like, what if you stab it through a different part of their body? Are they going to gain different powers, like radiant powers? And if you stab it through another radiant, because that's what the whole Mistborn idea is, right? And then stabbing it through another radiant. Maybe if you stab it through a spren, maybe.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I know it is what you're saying.
Because you can't stab a spren with anything but that metal.
Maybe this was what was happening when Ishar was studying the dead spren. He was trying to collect the powers through hemalurgy with hemalurgic spikes created by Stormlight. That would be the craziest prediction of all time if I'm able to get that right. But
we must learn more about that.
I know.
Because that's not a loose end that he can leave for 10 more years.
I'm only like 60%.
It's not your most confident.
It's not my most confident.
Fair enough.
Even the Stormfather taking up Honor's power, it's getting down. It's not as high as it used to be. But they're good. They're theories. They're out there. And if I'm right,
that's what makes this fun. That's what makes this fun.
Yes.
I love it. What is the what did you think about Xyle?
Oh, I knew
Xyle's
you would bring that up.
I had to bring it up. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So he's being tortured by. Do we know who yet?
I don't think we know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I can find it for you, but
yeah, it's pretty. No, I don't think we
short.
know.
It's so short, but he does have an AVR.
Yeah. So he doesn't know that the tower's been taken back yet?
I don't think he knows anything. I think he's been there for a long time. He doesn't even know how long he's been there because he's been resetting his memory every day.
Ah, nuts.
Because he doesn't want to remember the pain of torture. And then there's what does she end up having? That like gun with spikes on it. She calls it a pain reel.
Oh yeah.
What is that?
That sounds really familiar.
It sounds like
some sort of Scadrial tech, to be honest. But,
okay, because I was first thinking like, is it a pain fabrial like Navani had? But
no, you're right. It is. Yeah, there are pain reels, but yeah, that's what.
It just seems like a weird description for that. But maybe I missed some connection.
It's a gun.
It looked like a gun.
Yeah. Interesting.
Either way, he's in rough shape, and they're like, "Give me half your breath." He's like, no, I'm not going to." I wonder how much breath he has.
A frick ton.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because he's just like carrying around this insane amount of investiture, but it's pretty cool. Oh my
gosh, so wild. Yeah, that was crazy. And then the whole experience with the Iriali that you read right before we finished.
Oh yes.
So the 3 visitors from book 1 came back. They went to the Pure Lakes in book 1, and it was Galadon. They say their names this time, and Demu from Mistborn Era.
Yep.
Galadon from Elantris. I do not remember who the third person is. They said it a million times, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. Can't remember.
No, you're so much better at these connections than I am anyway.
Oh, so you remember Galadon, right? From Elantris?
Yes.
And you remember Demu?
I recognized the names. I knew Demu was from the Mistborn series. I just didn't remember him.
He's the general from... If you have not read Mistborn, you know what to do.
That's not
skip
a huge,
like 30 seconds. He's the general from Mistborn Era 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, Mistborn Era 1, he's in there too, and like...
And you meant Era 2, not Era 3, right? Or book 3?
Book 3, not Era. Yeah. From Era 1, book 3.
yeah, we've already read Era 3. We're way ahead of you guys.
Yeah. He's there. He's actually in book 2 and 1 as well. Okay. But he knew Kelsier in book 1 in the caves, and he had this experience with Kelsier where he used him as an example for training. Then he also led the religious cult worshipping Kelsier.
That's where he sounds more familiar to me.
He's like Lord Kelsier. Like he has the accent.
He has the accent. Is this happening in the future?
The scene?
Yeah, the interlude.
I think it's happening at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what
because they're basically saying it's time to go. We're moving on.
And it sounds like they've done this multiple times.
Yeah. But that it's a generational thing. It doesn't always happen. So they know it is something that's very, very rare, but they're all ready for.
Yeah, which is fascinating to have that experience of. There's a lot of like religions that talk about having like a coming or an event happening, like our Christian religion with the coming of like Christ, right?
Yeah.
But they have like the same idea for their religion, right? They have the coming of like they've been thinking that this thing is going to happen forever, that this like moving thing would happen. She had her bags ready. Then all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
Everyone's
today.
got a go bag.
Like, can you imagine? Like,
portal opens,
like all of a sudden, like,
leaves.
whoa, like it's today. I've always heard about this my whole life that this might happen, and now it's just happening. Like, okay, like here we go.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, way cool. Like I thought that was really cool. But it sounds like it's happened several times, and we've definitely seen these people.
This is the 5th time, right? Don't they specifically say like the 5th?
The 5th time that it's happened.
Yeah.
And they also say that I think we've seen these people traveling through Shadesmar before. They've talked about Iriali and the Shadesmar, and so you hear that name a lot, like throughout the Cosmere and things like that. Well, so it's just interesting. It makes sense. You've heard them traveling.
It's funny
before,
that Whit was there for first, left him a note with just his signature in it and a mean picture, and he's like, "Huh."
Classic.
Because he literally is like, give this to them. It's very important.
I forgot.
He leaves the envelope with them. He's like, if you see these guys, give this to them.
That's so
you got to see them opening letter and like, I hate that guy.
Like classic Whit.
It's hilarious. And they're like, no, he's this famous person. And they're like, no, he's not that great. But probably stay away from him. Yeah. He's awesome. That's why everybody loves Whit.
Yes, he's super awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much everything that I've got.
I'm pumped for the next 4 days of.
Very excited. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it with the next 4 days. Before we get there, though, the last one I want to say is Shallan fighting the Ghost Bloods, going through all these experiences as well. Yes. Our other theory was that Shallan's mom is the Herald.
Yes, that is a very common theory we've talked about before.
And this is even more confirmed.
Oh yeah,
from what we've been seeing. She keeps avoiding her eyes from the Herald with the red hair.
And, yes. and Radiant's like, don't think about it.
Don't think about it.
Like, okay. She recognizes her. It's like, come on.
And Vale's like, embrace it. You're fine.
Yeah. One thing about Shallan, I know we're wrapping up, but one thing about her is like when she had that fight with the Ghost Bloods in general, but specifically with Mraize, it's like Formless is like, yeah, kill him. I'm like, you can't just never agree with Formless. Like, it can't just be anything Formless thinks. I have to think the opposite, because then Formless is still controlling you. Yeah. You have to be able to ignore Formless and make your own decisions. I feel like she immediately, as soon as Formless has an opinion, she's like, I'm doing the opposite immediately.
Yeah, not doing it.
Like, that shouldn't be how this works. I still think she should have taken him out.
I know. Yeah, maybe it'll happen.
Especially because now the main threat to Dalinar and Navani is still running around.
Do you believe, Mraize, that Odium is also afraid of Mishram?
Yes. I mean, because specifically we learned that in the end, right? When she's talking about Mishram.
Does Mishram say that?
Well, Mishram says that she's intending to kill Odium.
Oh, basically. I must have missed that part.
It's not that she's intending. Shallan says, I understand what you're going through because I also killed those that created me.
And yes.
Like, they did that little conversation.
Yep.
I guess maybe it's implied. I don't want to get blasted in the comments either, but yeah, that's the vibe that I got from that conversation. Yeah. So I think so. But yeah, it's one of those things I'm like, you can't just always instinctively say, oh, if Formless thinks that, I'm thinking the opposite. Like, that's not a way to live.
I don't really understand the Formless thing. Not buying that one either, but
it's tricky. But I do think so. I'm super pumped. I kind of want to talk through what I'm most excited for.
Yeah, let's talk about it. What are you most excited about?
Most excited for once they have all of the Honor Blades, what's going to happen. And I need to see like an epic usage of all of these Honor Blades.
Yep.
Because I need... Szeth is the best sword master. He's the best at everything he tries. And he has this chance to collect all of them and be like the cleanser of all of Shinawara. And just that needs to be epic. And my expectations are set very high. That's the one thing that I'm most excited about.
Wow. I am still most excited about the battle with...
Contest of Champions?
Yeah, Contest of Champions.
Okay, fine. That's cool too.
That's pretty cool. I'm really excited to see that go down. I am also looking forward to the part when everything falls apart with Adolin's scene and how he overcomes it.
Okay.
This is how it goes with Sanderson.
It'll be fun.
We're going to be put in a horrible moment of desperation where Yanagorn, is that his name?
Yanagon?
I think Yanagorn. It's like Aragorn.
Very close though.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see him take up the sword. Clearly going to happen. This has been foreshadowing the whole book.
The whole way.
You're going to practice an Roshar blade, and you're going to practice towers, and you're going to do all these things. And he's clearly going to be put in a situation where he has to use the knowledge.
Yeah, and it's going to be awesome.
And it's going to be cool.
He's probably going to save Adolin's life. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be a full circle moment.
Yes. So very much looking forward to that.
So we're about to start day 7, and we'll read day 7 through 10. And our goal is to get that video out next week. Probably, maybe. We'll do our best. But we try to make sure we get these parts set up so you know as you're reading it as well, and you're ready for the video when it comes out. So we're excited to read that with you. If you haven't already seen our other videos on rereads of Stormlight Archive and Mistborn, like that's what the channel is about, rereading with you guys and having that experience together. So thank you so much for joining. If you've watched all the way to this part, leave us a comment. Let us know what your favorite part of this part of the book was, or what you're most excited for in the rest of the book. And we will see you in the next chapter.